Hello everyone, good morning. So we have very interesting panel coming up and the discussion point is about the UPI, about the digital payments and what we are trying to focus upon, how are we moving from volume to the value, right? So volume we have spoke about and we have seen also, it's been, we have pretty long journey enough that we have gone so far. So that is something which have moved up a lot. Now what we are talking about the value perspective, that how does the future looks like from the value perspective. Likewise, what we also have interacted with the speakers in the past, so then we were also discussing from the volume perspective, yes, definitely the scale has been reached, but how it is benefiting for the ecosystem, right? That is something the focus is largely driven on. So I'll just request panel to introduce themselves, that what they are doing and how they are doing, and then we'll move to the next set of questions as well. So Rohan.
Hi, morning everyone. So my name is Rohan. I look after product and new initiatives at 86400. So at 86400, we're a payment infrastructure company. So we build the core UPI transaction processing for over 100 plus banks. We do over 200 million transactions per month, processing around 20,000 crores in value. So we'll talk a bit about the volume and the value side of it. And in general, looking forward to discussing around, maybe what's happening in the Zimbabwean market and how, payment aggregators are working in this space. So yeah, look forward to this. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Rohan. So we also got Munya. Munya has come from a long way from the Zimbabwe. So he had been there in the last year as well. So fortunate to have you again today with us. So thank you for being here. Would just like to introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Munya Chiura. Last year when I came, I was with a company called D-Local Cross-Border Payments across emerging markets. In October of last year, I joined CBZ Holdings, which is a Zimbabwe financial institution. We support a number of different verticals, from banking to microfinancing to asset management. So really excited to be back in Mumbai, India again. Thank you.
Yeah. We also got Ashok. Ashok is from Zoho Payments. So Ashok would like you also to introduce.
So good morning everyone. My name is Ashok and I take care of the payments vertical for Zoho. So at Zoho we have a suite of 55 plus different products, right from your communication and collaboration, the workplace and the finance and operations. We particularly represent the finance and operations suite of products as well as the payment suite of products. So one of our core vision is that the business software, payments and banking, they should come well and integrate into one single financial operating layer. That's our core vision, and with this we are building a lot of softwares and products around it.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. So moving on to the discussion, because largely what we see, what are the opportunities that are in the market from the perspective of building value for the customers, being the one of the leading, what you can say, the country in the digital payment, it becomes so much important to have that view as well. So Rohan, would like to understand from your side, how does the platform plays a role into enabling the clients into that from your perspective? Like there are multiple financial institutions where you have worked upon. How do you see this volume to value journey is going for them, and what are your views on that?
Sure. So, just for context, right? So 86400 or Mobileware Technologies, when we started, we were one of the first technology partners to launch UPI as a transaction processing platform, right? And since then, we've grown to this journey where we've seen natural uptick since demonetization and then COVID of UPI, both volume and value rising. If you just look at that differentiation, right? If you split it between P2M and P2P transactions, P2M now accounts for over 60% of all UPI transactions. However, the value is still driven by P2P transactions, right? So some of the things or some of the changes that we have done internally is to move away from just being a utility, right? So our customer base has significantly changed in the last couple of years, where we have taken an active decision to not just focus on building the UPI switch or hosting the UPI switch for our partner banks, but also investing in our API banking platform called Transact, where we help the banks look at UPI in a different way, where it is not just a cost center for the bank, but we actively work on multiple use cases to help banks monetize UPI beyond just processing transactions. So we've sort of done 3 core things, right? So on top of the UPI switch, which has been live and functioning for over 10 years now, we've built an end-to-end merchant management platform. So what this merchant management platform does is it gives banks the business logic and the software to enable right from onboarding a merchant to completing their KYC/risk checks, having a lot of business logic in terms of online versus offline merchants. And then once these merchants go live, whether it's an offline or an online merchant, giving them the ability to manage disputes, chargebacks, refunds, etc. Right? So we built this 3 or 4 years back, and then this combination of the switch plus the merchant management system, we are now extending it to fintechs, businesses, payment aggregators in the form of Transact, right? So this is a combination that we've sort of focused on in terms of shifting our service of UPI from just a mere transaction utility platform into something which will help bridge the gaps between banks and fintech companies. So this is something that we've actively done to ensure that when we go out and we meet banks, we're not just yet another vendor, so to say. We're actively helping them go out in the industry and make their focus shift from UPI just being a utility to actually generating revenue for the banks.
Sure. Thanks for that. Munya, just moving to you, right? I mean, we also discussed about this earlier as well. I mean, looking at the global experiences, what you have. So you have seen PIX as well, you have seen UPI as well, you have seen multiple experience also. First-hand experience also you have in multiple payments. So how do you see this monetization opportunity perspective it is building up in the global market?
Yeah, good question. I think Rohan hit the nail on the head. So when you start to think about whether it's UPI or PIX, which is Brazil's version of UPI, I kind of think about the value chain, right? So we start with P2P being massive volume transactions. I call that the hook, right? You've got people using the system. The second would be around P2M. I think we've seen some of that in terms of QR code. I think about individuals making payments to merchants being the second layer. The third for me, which is the most exciting, is what I call the value, which is around the B2B payments. We've seen this acceleration globally, the numbers around $23.5 trillion, right, in terms of B2B payments. In Africa alone, we've seen intra-Africa trade with a number of around 3 trillion being a number that will be reached by 2030. That is all B2B payments. And I think for me, as we see what's happening globally and with UPI, so many interesting use cases now in terms of B2B payments, cross-border payments. I know that for UPI right now, it's mostly INR payments. There have been interesting conversations happening globally about UPI being applicable not just in India, but in other markets across the world. Again, the drive for me is really around how do you get more and more up the value chain. Those transaction sizes are larger. You've got a much, much larger opportunity in terms of market size. So I think, again, that's the natural progression where I see a lot of opportunity. And then maybe specifically, let me talk about PIX and use cases. So one of my customers previously had a real challenge with collecting recurring online payments, right? You think about emerging markets where you've got card-based payments. Well, what PIX did is they integrated the ability to do recurring payments on the PIX platform, right? So that you can pay for your Netflix and you can pay for your Spotify using those kind of applications. So I think that more and more use cases become relevant, and more B2B use cases, I think, is where I see the exciting opportunity going forward.
Perfect. So Ashok, I mean, just to continue the discussion of B2B, right? I mean, you have been into the enterprise payments as well, and you have been part of Zoho, who are also building solutions for the enterprise as well as for SMEs, where the current focus is also there. So how do you see from their perspective, from the SME perspective, or do they focus on the, I mean, enterprise applications which are providing them value-added services? I mean, not just the payment service, but any additional service more than the just a transaction.
Perfect. So businesses typically pay for four major things. One, can the solution increase their top line? Two, can they protect their bottom line? Three, do they have faster access to the funds? Do they better manage the cash flows? And four, one of the biggest pain point for any SME or enterprise is reconciliation. So businesses typically pay for these four major areas. I'll try to elaborate one by one, right? So if you take increasing the revenue of any businesses, so when it comes to payments, can the payments platform actually do automatic retries to prevent any payment failures? Do they have an orchestration layer which can actually smartly route the transaction depending on the success rate of the acquirer? So that is one thing. And can they actually help them grow their revenue by not just with payments? Can they help businesses to increase their sales by going into different marketplaces, different e-commerce platforms, and then start collecting payments from their own online store or through the e-commerce platform? This is where the value-added services which will help the revenue to increase. Second is protecting the bottom line. So typically you take any market, be it US or India or any other geography, a lot of the payments typically lost through the lot of frauds that happen. It could be either friendly frauds, or it could be through stolen credit cards, or it could be any loss which happens through the payment rails, right? So can the payment provider protect the business from the frauds that are happening in that particular geography? So this will actually help the businesses to pay additionally for the losses. So if they are having a 100 basis point loss, then they probably would be much more interested to pay 5 basis point for protecting those losses, right? And the other major point is like any SME or enterprise, they would want to have faster access to funds. So can the payments be predictable in terms of settlement? Can they have faster settlement, which can lead to better cash flow and better operational efficiency of the businesses? And obviously the finance team of any organization, reconciliation is one of the biggest pain point, right? So you might have seen the finance team dealing with offline invoices, offline payments, trying to reconcile. A lot of customers who are paid might not receive the services. A lot of payments made for the vendors might not be accounted in their system. So can the reconciliation be automated along with the payment system, along with the business software, so that the business can drive their operations and improve their efficiency?
Perfect. That's pretty much you've covered on the that side as well. So coming back to you, Rohan, when Ashok was also talking about the how the SMEs look after this, right? I mean, being work with the financial institutions which are serving for the larger enterprise also. Would like to know from the platform perspective, what are the things you have seen into, those are being perceived or those are being looked upon, that these are the things that should be the part of the platform from the enterprise perspective as well.
Yeah, sure. So actually we have at Mobileware, we have seen this transition of how a payment platform can move from SMEs to large enterprises, and we've as a company sort of seen that transition in the last 5 years, where when we started Transact, which is our API banking platform, we were originally serving use cases for small kirana stores and SMEs, right? For your standard financial inclusion use cases where you had direct money transfers, you had AEPS, you had micro ATM and all those services. However, what we've seen in terms of catering as a technology partner to those vendors or those SMEs is that their requirements are very unique, where you have to invest a lot on building UI, you have to invest a lot on different requirements for each geography. So if you have an SME in Punjab, they would have a very different expectation from someone in the southern part of the country, right? And as a technology or a payment platform, you can't scale that. You can't keep building new UI for every different geography, right? And that is when, in the last couple of years, we actively took a decision to transition away from that model and start focusing on larger enterprises, hopefully soon like Zoho, where we look at use cases which are reproducible, and often the partners that we're actually working with, they help us teach or they help us learn what are the features that we would want in a robust payment platform. So, Ashok was mentioning about orchestration. That is something, and even reconciliation, that is something that we've been focused on. That, and after having conversations with such large enterprises, we realize that how big of a pain point this is for enterprises where their finance and ops teams are pretty much slammed the entire day just doing reconciliation, right? So, when we do a transaction, we don't realize that a UPI transaction is processed immediately, but what actually happens on the back end, how much operational overload it is on banks' teams, right? So those are the things that we're focused on, and that is what we've actively shifted away from, just building UI journeys for SMEs to now actually building features for large enterprises. And what we've realized is that the sophistication level of these large enterprises is often such that they define the roadmap for us in a lot of cases, right? And we don't have to customize it a lot because everyone's problems are the same. And because they're already so tech first, we can just work on APIs and SDKs. We don't have to, do fancy UI or anything of that sort. So those are some of the things that we have observed since we've made this transition, whether it is building an orchestration layer, whether it is investing actively in reconciliation, and just treating our customers as our design partners. I think that has worked very well for us to transition from serving SMEs to now looking at larger enterprises.
Sure. When we talk about enterprise payments, Munya, one of the rather critical thing that comes up is a cross-border, right? I mean, looking at multiple payment system or enterprises and this evolution which has happened, how do you see this cross-border is getting evolved for the enterprises, and what is that India should look after considering the, all these payment systems and the growth which is happening across over?
Yeah, I think Ashok mentioned something which is important, is around liquidity. Right? It would be remiss of me not to mention, I hope it's not a dirty word in India, but stable coins. Right? The reality is that when you're in markets, especially when it comes to cross-border payments, think about merchants who are doing business globally. We have to have an FX position of either holding INR, GBP, Naira, whatever you might look at in terms of your currency. What's happening now is that you've got the ability to leverage stablecoin as a way to move money more efficiently, to better allocate your FX capabilities. And so this is one area that I think is really exciting, even in the context of where I'm from in Africa. Just a case in point, a market like Nigeria did $23 billion in stablecoin value last year, actually 2024. So that's a large number. And why would that be the case? It is around merchant settlement. It's about being able to predict what your liquidity is. It's the payment and settlement processes that have to happen in a cross-border setting. And so for me, I'm particularly interested to see how this continues happening globally. We are seeing even markets like the US that are offering stable coin yields, right? So actually your deposits now are able to earn some sort of income. So that's an area that I'm particularly excited about, and seeing what and how that applies, especially when it comes to cross-border payments. We're seeing interesting use cases for remittances. The average remittance, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa is about 5 to 8%, and there are use cases that show that number could be dropped to 1%. And that's just on the P2P side. Think about what the implications are on cross-border B2B payments.
Yeah, that's useful actually. Yeah. Ashok, coming to you, talking about the SMEs, I mean, typically SME has been seen as maybe in working in single geography. Typically it comes to mind, right? Because it's not the large enterprise perspective. But today that is not the case, right? I mean, SMEs are being global as well. So in your experiences, what are the challenges they have gone through, and how do, I mean, what platforms should take care of serving the enterprises which are across the global or working through multiple geographies?
So there are multiple problems which either an SME or an enterprise face when they want to get into multi-geographic business, right? So one particularly with respect to payments, they want to support the local payment methods. So obviously it cannot be the same rails which can work for multiple geographies. Take a market like US, people would want to accept ACH based payments or Apple Pay based payments, right? So market like India, obviously UPI is the predominant payment method which they would want to. Similarly, it differs based on different geographies. They would want to accept the local payment methods as well as the local bank transfers that are present in each and every country. This is one major pain point. Second is like payments is not about just collections. It's also making payments to the vendors, making payroll payments, making payments, refunds to the customers, all those things. So typically what the enterprise or the SME would do is like when they go multi-geography, they would want to open a bank account and then they would want to make a host-to-host integration with the bank so that the payroll payments can be automated or the supplier payments can be automated, right? So this is another major problem. And not just the payments with respect to collections or payouts. The major problem with respect to the expanding geography comes along with the accounting, tax and the compliance which is present in each geography. So what is the tax that has to be applied for the payments that has to be made, right? How do we, the payment platform or the software platform, take care of the entire ambit, right? From the tax compliance to the payment compliance, everything, right? So that forms a major aspect of it. And so when these things are like automated, right? So when these things are automated or when these things are like provided by a single vendor to the SME or the enterprises, then running the operation will not be seen as a burden. That will actually act as a lever to growth in multiple geographies.
Sure, yeah. Just focusing, Rohan, again on the monetization perspective, right? What are the things, I mean, from your view, looks like should be focused upon so that the ecosystem also earns money? I mean, at least at the end, it's a business for all, right? And it doesn't come without the monetization. So, what are your views? How that can be built? What are the things can be done for that?
So obviously this is a tricky question, and as a player in this industry, we obviously abide by whatever the regulator says in terms of how UPI should be monetized. Obviously now with credit line on UPI and credit card on UPI, there is a play for MDR as well, where say beyond a certain transaction size, merchants do have to pay up and issuers have an incentive, and so do TPAPs, etc. Right? From our point of view, what we've done in terms of aligning incentives is that for us, the primary customer is the bank and the fintechs that we serve, right? So we were actually one of the first technology platforms to pioneer the model of moving away from a licensed sort of model to a hosted model where we work on a per transaction basis, right? So our entire thing is that we want to align our incentives with our partner banks. So we don't want to work on a software license model. We want to work on a per transaction model so that if the bank grows, we grow, right? So in that manner, we're aligning incentives. In terms of aligning incentives of the users and the merchants, I think the regulator is obviously working hard in terms of doing that. Obviously, UPI is free, probably would remain to be free for customers for the foreseeable future. But with credit on UPI now coming in, there are monetization opportunities opened up. We recently partnered for launching credit line on UPI for a large fintech company, and it has been a very good way for banks to not just launch a new payment product, but also open it up as an acquisition channel for CASA customers, right? Where if I'm a merchant and I'm giving out a credit line on UPI, the fintech which is giving out or the payment aggregator which is giving out the CLOU already has visibility over cash flows, right? So they have confidence to do like an unsecured credit line. And that becomes interesting because there is an MDR play over there, and that opens up monetization opportunities. But beyond that, because if you don't have a CASA customer or a CASA relationship, the merchant still would be open to get a credit line from you. It's not that high friction of a product. So those are the things in which we are very interested in. Again, from our point of view as an infrastructure provider, we don't decide these things, but we obviously get pulled into whatever the market is seeking. And that is how we, are looking at this entire monetization / aligning incentives piece.
Sure. So, Munya, coming back to you, I mean, as Rohan said, although the monetization is a important part of all these services being offered, the governance is also another aspect which makes things in control and make sure that the entities are getting in line with the mission what is there been planned from the transaction perspective. So, what are your views and how does governance models work into it?
Yeah, before I answer the governance one, I just wanted to comment a little bit on a statement I put down here, which is that once transactions are free, the data becomes your asset. I'll repeat it again. Once transactions are free, data becomes your asset. And I think one of the challenges we continue to face within fintech payments banking is that there's always a fee. You're being charged everything, balance inquiry fee, and it comes to a point where those fees are not infinite, right? There has to be a point where you start looking at other data streams. And so what I'm particularly interested and excited about is how do we start looking at different revenue streams that actually will be driven by data and less by transaction fees. And I think for me, that becomes very critical going forward. Then in terms of governance, I think the way I like to think about governance is that it really comes down to sort of three areas. How do I capture the data? I mean, one of the key things we're finding globally is that there's a lot of pressure around data and governance. And so I start to think about how we're collecting the data, who sees the data, and then how do you get consent for that data? So I think as we look at governance, and for me that becomes very important. The other one is around what I call model and risk. One of the interesting things about especially emerging markets, and we came across this, is that as you're starting to think about data and AI models, is that are we capturing risk the right way? Are we capturing the environment that's reflective of the risk? Because sometimes if you don't do that, then you don't capture some of the nuances of a market. And I'll just give you a really small example of that. In South Africa today, you will find that people will use platforms like Temu and Shein to purchase items in bulk. Now, because of the economic challenges, right, it may be a group of people who are all making purchases all on the same card. Right? So if your risk team looks, they'll say, oh, there's something going on. But the reality is that that is a false signal, right? And so when I talk about risk and data models, I think that becomes important because you're starting to ensure that you're capturing the relevance of that ecosystem from a risk and compliance perspective. And then I think the last one for me, which becomes important on the governance side, is that as we move more and more towards or from P2P to B2B, there are all of those challenges about risk. You look at who pays, you look at all of the risk profiles, chargebacks. I mean, all of those things that might have been more relevant to your consumer, but now you're having to take into consideration what that risk governance profile looks like for B2B. So I think as you see, especially UPI moving more and some of these rapid real-time payment systems moving more to B2B, I think that will be probably my third thought around who pays.
Yeah, thanks for that. Ashok would also like to know from you, from the perspective, like we talk about monetization, governance, but all of this also helps to build the trust, right? I mean, when any enterprise builds trust on your platform, typically they become used to it, and then they trust the platform and start using it for all the activities, right? So how does that plays the factor? Because in retail payments today, if you see, if transaction gets fails, we typically get kind of anxiousness, right? Why it has happened, and of course in enterprise it will be much more than that. So how does it handles operationally, or would you like to put some views on that as well?
Yeah. Payments and banking, they are principally trust based. So any payments or banking system, they completely operate out of trust, right? So how do we build the trust? Say for example, if you're running a collection system and if your collection fails on month end, obviously that will erode trust. Or if you're running a payroll system and if the salary gets delayed by forget few days, if it gets delayed by few hours, then that will completely erode the trust of the employees and the finance team will face the burden, right? So the system has to be completely reliable and available all the time. So it has to work like a clockwork. There is no second chance when it comes to payments, right? And then the second factor would be like transparency. Transparency when it comes to the SMEs in terms of pricing, in terms of the functionalities, in terms of predictable settlements. All those things play a major role for the SMEs as well as the enterprises. And we talked about the data becoming the product itself, right? So privacy plays a huge role when it comes to trust. So we deal with enterprise software and we have tons and tons of data, and we come with the commitment that customer owns the data and we don't touch the customer's data. So we are a completely privacy focused company, and the trust, be it the payments data or the business software related data, the customer owns the data, and we are showing a strong commitment that we don't monetize any of the data. Though it's like very, very lucrative, we don't monetize any of the data. We have multiple monetization mechanism, be it the business software, your billing workflows, your payment workflows, your accounting workflows, your recurring subscription workflows. These are some of the workflows which would increase the revenue for the businesses, and they'll be more than happy to pay for these things. So we have a strong commitment when it comes around privacy. And see, the system should also be very, very open. So we cannot tell that the business should get logged in one system forever. Take for example, Bharat Connect for Business. So NPCI has come up with a system which is truly interoperable across multiple ERPs. We have the likes of Zoho, Tally, SAP, NetSuite, all integrated through Bharat Connect for Business, so that the invoice information can be exchanged seamlessly from one ERP to another, right? So what this brings is, this builds trust between all the players. So today they are not logged in Zoho for their ERP system. If they want to migrate to any other system, they are free to do that. And similarly, the invoices that are getting created in one ERP gets automatically posted into another ERP, eliminating manual data entry, eliminating all the reconciliation issues, and thereby getting faster payments, faster collections and faster payouts for the businesses. So this actually brings in a lot of trust for the businesses, and anything which is contrary to this might erode the trust of the businesses, be it SMEs or enterprises.
So if I can, sorry,
Yeah,
add on
please.
to sort of that, adding a UPI angle to that. So even for use cases like petty cash, right, what we have seen, and to answer your question on the monetization side of it, is that use cases like expense management and petty cash, and I'm sure you would agree, are still working on the fragmented sort of workflow where UPI is still not penetrated that highly, right? You still have to make an expense yourself as an employee and then file a reimbursement. What we've seen, and we're working with a few expense management companies on this, where especially for use cases like if I'm a quick commerce company and I have a fleet of, say, folks in my branch who want to make weekly payments or monthly payments, typically, they would be doing a cash payment in that case, right? And then filing a reimbursement later on. We've been working on a few pilots with petty cash sort of companies or those who have built software to automate these flows, where we have started introducing UPI into the picture, where the ticket size is still low, but the fact is that the delta between earlier doing a cash payment to now using UPI, where you're not using your funds, but your sort of company funds are being spent, makes a very big difference. And this is another way where we're seeing monetization come in, right? Where you're not charging the end user for the transaction, but you're charging the company for the software around it. And in that way, UPI still remains free. And as a business or a software company building a petty cash solution or an expense management solution, you have a way to monetize it. So yeah, I think that is interesting in some of the use cases that we're working on.
Yeah, Great, great. So from the audience perspective, the panel is open for the question and answer. Anybody would like to ask any of the questions, please? Anybody there? Yeah.
My question from Joe person is this. You got a PAPG license kind of a thing, right? So what kind of regulations from RBI do you face on a periodic basis, and how do you ensure that it is followed up? Because the high standard of corporate governance is required, keeping in view the volume of transactions and value of transactions happening through your kind of a portal, right?
So we take governance and compliance very, very seriously, not just in payments. We also run the software business, right? So we take care of compliance in almost all the geographies. We take care of the tax compliance, we take care of the payroll compliance, we take care of the accounting related compliance. We integrate directly with the government authorities for making tax related payments directly from within
Do the
Ashok.
RBI conduct audit?
Sorry?
Do RBI conduct audit?
They conduct periodic audits, particularly with respect to payments. Since we are a PAPG license holder, RBI does periodic audits. There are like weekly reports, monthly reports that we'll have to submit. And over and above, the entire supervision for our entire payments operation is done by RBI. And they do periodic audits.
So any concern you have observed from past of your experience? I mean, some kind of cyber crime or some kind of these things.
See, RBI
Are the instances going up, and how Juho is able to cater to it?
Yeah. So RBI has given stringent guidelines with respect to cyber security, with respect to governance, resilience, everything, right? And there is also periodic audits from RBI to ensure that all the payment aggregators in the country are following the stringent guidelines which are given by them, and they also do periodic audits. See, one thing is that we took security very, very seriously. We are a cloud-based company. So we took very, very seriously about security even before our payments business. So payments business was very recent, 3 years back, right? We got into payments. But we have been into the business for the past 30 days, and one of the major revenue comes from the cloud software. The other major revenue comes from the enterprise IT software. So we are already into enterprise IT, where we build softwares which are used by the enterprises to manage their security, the endpoints, the governance aspect of it, to manage their entire endpoint, firewall, log analyzer, all those products. We have a division called Manage Engine, which manages entire things. And globally, we also manage our entire data center. We are not on top of AWS or Azure. We have our own data center, and we manage the entire servers. We manage the entire data center softwares. The softwares are not from third parties. We have built our own softwares to manage the entire data center related operations. And even when it comes to security, we have our own proprietary softwares, in-house built software, which takes care of the entire security aspects of it. So we take security seriously because we are in cloud. And it took like 30 years for us to build the entire reputation of Zoho. All it takes is like one security breach to spoil it. So we take security and privacy very, very seriously. And payments is no exception when it comes to either RBI or in terms of security or privacy.
So by just behavior of the inflow, you can find out the kind of suspicions is the transaction can be. We call it in banks like suspicious transaction report, right? STR kind of a thing. So you have a capability, the system is built in, that through the behavior you can track it. This is going to be suspicious transactions or alerts kind of things are generated like done in RBI portal of FRMS and all.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one is like we already have intrusion detection and intrusion prevention system, which helps in detecting all the bad actors coming into the system. Second, we have something called payments detective that actually detects the bad actors in the system through clustering, machine learning, anomaly detection, and various algorithms, which runs real time on the transactions and helps to identify lot of patterns which are anomalous or could be from the bad actors, and then it shows automatic insights to the analysts who are looking into this on a day-to-day basis. And with these insights, we detect frauds proactively rather than reactively after a chargeback comes in, and we help the business by passing these insights to the businesses. And in case if a suspicious transaction report has to be filed to RBI, we also file it. So we have an in-house system called Payments Detective which does the work for us.
I think typically that we focus in our discussions also, right? When building trust is important, and I'm sure, it's not easy to hold the license as well, right? So you have to do that introspect analysis as well. Audit is the one thing which governance will take care of, but otherwise I'm sure that there will be internal departments who are looking after it to make yourself ready for that. Yeah, right. Sure.
Hey, hi. So apart from what Rohan talked about, the large corporates, and what Ashok talked about the SMEs, which are the future untapped markets from where the monetization can come. For example, giving a credit score from a UPI payment. I am making my bills on time, I am paying my rents on time. So any idea on that? Where might be the volume might be the low, but valuation can be more going forward.
See, we have always believed that payments, banking and business software should improve the operational efficiency of the businesses. And anything and everything that improves the efficiency or drives growth for the businesses will have a leverage, and we can monetize that, right? Even if payments is free, the software, the surrounding part of the software, be it petty cash management, be it the spend management, the procurement, be it the payroll system, be it the accounting, helping the businesses to go online. Say for example, if someone is having a brick and mortar store, can the company help the businesses to go online and sell online? So we have solutions which can help the businesses to manage their inventory, synchronize their inventory across multiple marketplaces, and not just selling from their own website. We also help synchronizing this with the likes of Amazon, eBay, Flipkart, everyone, and then their online sales can also happen, right? So there are multiple ways with which the payment monetization can happen. What matters more for the SMEs is that is the solution improving their operational efficiency, and is the solution improving their pain point? I'll give you an example. Back in 2017, we introduced a concept called connected banking. We don't charge, till date we don't charge for a single rupee for those transactions. It's completely free. So typically if you take any corporates, right, they'll have deep pockets. They can go and talk to the bank, build a host-to-host integration within their corporate environment, which will take a lot of resources, IT infrastructure and people to manage this. So this was not available to the SMEs. What we did was, we directly integrated with the banking rails. We have connectivity with more than 8 to 9 banks in India, public sector as well as private sector banks. And with this, what we do is like we directly connect with the bank's CMS, the corporate internet banking system, and pull the bank statements which can be used by the accounting software for reconciliation or the ERP software for reconciliation. And we also facilitate various kind of payouts, right from where the supplier invoices are there, or right from where the payroll related payments are happening, right? So this brings stickiness to the product, and this brings lot of efficiency for the businesses. Typically what they will do is like they'll go to the banking portal, make the payment, and then come and do the reconciliation or the recording of the software in the software system. When we automate end to end, right from the workflows to the payment, businesses will see a lot of value. And when they see a lot of value, there is a lot of opportunity for you to sell the software products or do any sort of upsell or cross-sell to those businesses. The stickiness will increase a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ashok, for that.
Yes,
Munya.
maybe I'll quickly add on the SME side. I think that we have to keep in mind, especially from the region where I'm coming from, SMEs are critical. It's not large corporates. And in fact, we had a transaction in South Africa. It's the third largest bank, bought a POS company. And people are like, why would you do that? Keep in mind, right, is that you've got your SMEs going back to the data, right? How can I start leveraging the data to start making SMEs more efficient, understanding their cash flow, and even doing point-of-sale lending, right? So the SME sector is still a massive opportunity, and I think even banks globally are trying to crack that opportunity, because that's where we're seeing the biggest opportunity for growth, even from an employment creation perspective, from a financial inclusion perspective. SMEs are critical.
So yeah, it has been very interesting discussions from all over the different segments as well as different sectors what we talk about. So thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy to having you on the stage as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rohan Agrawal, Mr. Munya Chiura, and Mr. Ashok Selva Ganesan for sharing your valuable insights. And thank you, Mr. Vikrant Kulkarni, for moderating the discussion. May I now request Mr. Vikrant Kulkarni to present tokens of appreciation, followed by a quick photograph.